Fellow nerds, we are talking the Invincible special, Adam Eve, that is on Prime Video right now. So if you haven't watched it, we're going to talk a lot of spoilers. So maybe go watch it now, then come back. We'll wait. Just kidding.
And we're
Just
back.
pause it. But this was one of those things that this was not announced. They did no marketing for this. This was not like announced. Prior to this, they basically dropped the Invincible Season 2 trailer, which if you haven't watched a video with Doug and I breaking it down, catch it on our YouTube video. It might still be up on Twitch, but it's definitely up on YouTube, so check it out. They also released this special presentation with the origin of Adam Eve, which I thought was extremely well done.
Mm-hmm.
We learned a lot about the character that we didn't know. It had a tremendous cast. And basically, talking about it before the show, Dave said there's a couple of origin tropes in it, which is very true. But they executed it well, so it wasn't as bothersome. It's kind of like, okay, they kind of have to do that. I understand that. It's okay. They made it
it's common
interesting
to every
enough.
story.
Yeah, made it interesting enough that it didn't bring the whole showdown by having it in there.
Yeah, it's not like watching Martha Wayne's Pearls every movie. It wasn't like that. It was just things that seem to happen in every origin story that they have to happen. So, you can't really mark them down for that. But at the same time, let's accept those things are there and not overdo them. Be a little more creative, I guess.
And they did a good job. I love the fact that her parents, I don't want to call them her adopted parents because the parents that she was given to in the hospital when she was born, weren't the greatest parents. They weren't, Martha and Pa Kent. They had issues. They loved her, but they weren't the best parents, and that kind of helped shape her. And it was nice to see, the dad said things that he didn't mean in the heat of his anger a little bit. Even the mom could be a little harsh at times, but then they felt bad. They did love her, but they just struggled as good parents, which you don't often see in superhero origins. So it was nice to kind of have that aspect to it. I enjoyed that, okay, she's going to rise above all this instead of having the perfect parents that shaped her. Kind of like what Mark
true.
did too.
Normally the bad parents are the villains. They have the same origin story as the hero, but they have the bad parents.
Yep.
So she can work her way around it.
Yes, she can. And I like that, Brandyworth, who was the doctor with the conscience who created her basically, and they couldn't replicate the thing after she was gone. But, he was like, I had a conscience. I couldn't do that. I basically put a mental block where you can't manipulate humans and animals. Because, she was trying to turn that squirrel into a puppy at one point, but couldn't do it, didn't understand why. And, once again, the scientist that did it regretted it is kind of happens a lot. But I love the fact that when she was playing basketball and he was standing across the street I got to keep my eye on her. I want to make sure everything goes well. She's like, who's that creep? She wasn't just like, hey, why are you looking at me? How's it going? What? You're a scientist who created me? Let's go on an adventure together. She was like freaked out by him because this weird dude is just staring at her.
It's funny because when I was watching that scene, I was thinking something different because in the previous scene, she had been mocked or whatever, hazed or whatever by two boys in the previous scene. Next thing you know, that next scene, she's calling him a freak. And I was like, well, isn't that the same thing that you were mad at the other guys about? Is that they were calling you a freak? But, whatever. It still didn't hurt the show. But I was just thinking that.
He was just an older guy just staring at her. That is definitely creepy behavior.
There's other ways he could have handled that. Let's just say that.
But I even like when she's like, oh, you're some super scientist who creates heroes, but you're eating out of garbage. And he's like, yeah, I got to stay off the grid.
Yeah, I can't be traced, man. When they first said that, the voice of the I forget the guy's name. The guy in charge. Um, but he was the guy from John Wick who died. When I first heard his voice, I thought it was the guy from this show, Keith David. I didn't realize their voices were so close. But yeah, all the voice actors, great job.
And they, they even showed on the Invincible trailer for season 2 all the people that are going to be in there. And yeah, that's Tatiana She-Hulk herself, Jennifer Walters, is in it, and she is the Lizard Queen. And I love the fact that they had the Lizard League to start off this episode, in the past, and Omni-Man was there. But the Lizard League is the complete ripoff of the Serpent Society from Marvel Comics, and I love that they throw them in there, just unashamed, just like we're just gonna they're the Lizard League, they're not the Serpent Society, and they got like Cobra guys and all the different snakes. I'm like, I love when they do stuff like that. It was like the Guardians of the Globe. It was such a ripoff of the Justice League and the Avengers. But
and the boys,
that's okay.
The boys do the same thing.
Yeah, the Seven is it's fine as long as you have strong characters, excellent writing, good acting. You get past those little things, and I can't wait. I love that they beat Marvel to the punch because we know the Serpent Society is going to be in Captain America: Brave New World, and now people are going to be like, "We saw them in the Adam Eve special. This is just a Lizard League."
Well, is everything on hold for that now, though?
For
anything going forward, really?
Well, Brave New World finished filming, so I suppose reshoots are definitely going to be put on hold. But yeah, at this point, I don't think we can trust any release dates for anything that we have. It's depending on when the writers and actors strike gets over. Pay the writers and actors.
Pay them.
We don't know when anything is going to come out.
People think that because they're big name actors, not all of them get paid. Like Jim Carrey does. You know what I mean? Robert Downey Jr. They don't all get paid like that.
A lot of actors live basically job to job. They may be famous and you may know their name. That doesn't mean they're living in mansions. This isn't for the Robert Downey Jr.'s, the Jim Carreys, the George Clooney's. This is for the people doing commercials and having roles on shows, but not the main character. This is for everybody in the Actors Guild.
Tangent time for 1 second. Did you know that one of the things that they're trying to stop is that once they get an extra on an image in the background, they take that image with their AI and they can reproduce that image in whatever movie they want to from the end of time.
They don't have to have extra. That's
they
can't
can't want.
do that. Yeah.
That is ridiculous.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's also about, residuals for streamers because, the last strike was they weren't getting residuals for DVDs and whatnot. Well, be careful, buddy. And, before that it was they weren't getting residuals from VHS tapes. And now they're not getting residuals from streaming shows. So it's happened over and over again. Eventually, hopefully sooner rather than later, they're going to get what they deserve and it'll be over and, they'll get a bigger piece of the pie instead of the CEOs making $35 million a year.
Yeah, they had the last strike, 2007. I don't think that lasted a full year. So hopefully this one doesn't either.
Yeah, but getting back to Adam Eve, they had. I enjoyed the fact too, which is still kind of a trope. They could never reproduce her, so all of her brothers and sisters were deformed and couldn't stay out in public. Wasn't anything new, but it was still, I thought, excellent how they did it. We're gonna send you after her. The one guy knew who she was, knew that they basically had the same mom. They did a good job of keeping it a secret that the mom was still alive and just basically totally comatose, and they're just keep impregnating her, trying to get, Adam Eve 2 Electric Boogaloo out. And just them fighting and things going on and her using her powers. And even though she's OP, I mean, her powers are basically the Molecule Man who can do anything. She's still learning to use them. She's bloodied and battered and, struggling to win these fights.
Yeah.
They did a great job. I really thought that. Part.
That's the best part of an origin story is watching them struggle with their newly found powers. And they don't do that. They, at least in the last few years, it seems like they've kind of skimmed over that in movies. I think that's the most important part.
You have to see it. They have to, overcome their adversity with things. And you're right. A lot of the times we don't see it. And this show did a good job of showing her not fully accustomed to what she could do, but she learned as she went. Like fighting the one bad guy who was robbing the bank, and then fighting her siblings. It really did nice.
I got a lot of Miss Marvel vibes, with her floating across town on her light. I would consider that light, solid light, what she was using, but they never explained what
Yeah.
it was. Just
Yeah.
molecules, I suppose.
And I like that she was turning. I don't know if it is something that people eat, but her turning her cream cheese and olive sandwich into a cheeseburger, kudos. I don't know if people really eat that. I was like, that sounds absolutely disgusting.
You know what's disgusting? Hot dog with ketchup on.
Oh, agreed, 100%. I know Keith from the 838 does it, but man, that's just sick and wrong.
That
There's no
guy's a
need for that.
weirdo.
The biggest, I know.
Need to send him back to his own dimension, universe, dimension, whatever.
Yep. And then at the end of this, episode, I love the fact that she did not kill the two guys, the head of the thing, but she completely wiped out their memories. She didn't do the Superman thing where she would have done the right thing, and she's like, I can't kill him. I know that's not right, and I'm not going to do that. But you know what? They are giant DBs. They're not going to have any idea what is going on ever again. And hopefully, I'll be able to sleep at night knowing that. That was a nice way to handle that, because even if she gets to a point later in her career where she wouldn't do that because that's stepping over a line, she's still a teenager. She's still going to do what she thinks is probably best. And I thought that was a very nice touch, because they're not going to come back after her. They don't have to bring them back in a season of Invincible. I almost called it Incredible. And a season of Invincible, because they're still out there. They're just going to never have to pop up again. Just part of her origin story. And just a self-contained, nice little episode that got a lot more character development for Adam Eve.
They did leave some strings out there in case they wanted to. Like they could always figure out who her dad was.
Yep.
They could always. But how old is she supposed to be? 12?
18 and Invincible.
But on this show, she was like 12, right? She was really young. And
Yes.
she was orphaned. And she didn't know that she was orphaned until she spoke to I forget the doctor's name again.
Brandyworth.
Brandyworth. Until she spoke to him, she had no idea she was an orphan. And aren't most superheroes orphans?
It seems like it. You're
If you
stealing
ask
a line from
She-Hulk,
your favorite
she will tell you
MC. I was going to say, you're stealing a line from your favorite MCU show.
that. Well, you can even go on DC on that one. So
It is true.
So
A
now-
lot of heroes are orphans.
depends on which universe you're in when you're looking at Superman. Some of the universes Jonathan Kent survives.
Yep. Well, then, when she gets home after all this happens, too, her parents actually, because she made a point. My parents didn't even remember it was my birthday when Brandyworth had remembered it. But then when she got home after all this went down, her parents had a cake for her and stuff. And, once again, they weren't great parents, but they did care and they tried and they wanted to, they do love her. And that I thought was the right way to handle it. They're not great, but they mean well. Anyone who's a parent's had a bad day, and you don't want to be judged on your worst day.
But I tell you, I would never call my daughter a freak. You know what I mean? Like he did on more than one occasion. I would never do that. That was extreme.
Well, that's because your daughters are lovely young women.
That's true.
But yeah, even if my kids were freaks, I still wouldn't call them it like he did. But that's why our kids would be, if they had superpowers, they would be, Superman. where their daughter is Adam Eve.
Yeah.
And then it was nice too. After that, we got kind of a scene with Mark and Omni Man and Debbie, where they're like discussing if his powers are ever going to manifest. And
Duct tape man.
Oh my god. And she's like, even if you don't get your powers, we're gonna love them. And you see Omni Man just kind of like seething.
Yeah.
And then he's like,
If he doesn't get
"All
him,
right."
I'm gonna kill that kid. So that's the thought he had.
But then he was kind of ashamed of that after that. Like he had that initially, then he was kind of ashamed, which goes, if you watched our Invincible season 2 trailer, Doug was talking about how it's different in the comics, the show. In the comics, he went off and, brought like the Viltrumites back to Earth, I believe. But in this, he's kind of gone and no one knows where he is, where he's probably more ashamed of his actions than anything else. He's, once again, not the best parent, but I think he does love Mark. And I think he's can't
Just not his
believe his
wife.
actions. Well, maybe not her. I still think she's like a pet,
Yeah.
which I still think he does believe. But, I thought that was a nice touch, showing him like angry that he doesn't have his powers and then kind of feeling bad that he had that thought. So that could be character development for what's going to happen, or, a hint at what's going to happen in season 2.
And
Which is
sometimes
what
that's
good
all it
shows do.
Exactly. Sometimes that's all it takes. A little scene like that, just him showing any regret was a little bit of depth to that character. Sometimes that's all it takes, and some shows just don't do that.
They really don't, and it's unfortunate. But on the Doug scale, Dave, what would you rate the Invincible special presentation Adam Eve?
Now, I'm trying to be a little more critical, not giving everything a free pass. I love the Invincible series. I don't know what I gave it last year. I think I gave it a 9. This show was very good, besides a few tropes that we mentioned. So I would give it a 7. It's definitely above average. It's not groundbreaking. We had a few things, but it was a good show. I would watch it again. I probably will watch it again. So,
Yeah, I
what about
agree
you?
with you. This was definitely above average. We had an excellent voice cast. It was an interesting origin for this character. I think it added depth to not just her, but Omni Man and other things going down. We got some villains kind of introduced, which hopefully will be coming back in season 2 of Invincible. And it's definitely something I will watch again, because I'm planning on watching Invincible season 1 and this before season 2 drops on November 3rd. And I'm going to give it an 8. I thought it was very well done. I thought the animation style was great. It pretty much, outside of a few things that, while cliched and tropey a bit, they still executed it well, so it wasn't bothersome. They didn't dwell on it. They did it, just got past it, and I thought overall it was a very enjoyable show.
And Doug, what
But
do you
what do
think?
you owe? But you, out there on YouTube, what do you think?
Let's hear it. I want to hear it. I want to see it well, we got somebody in the chat. How about if you're on YouTube, let's see it on the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to interact with you.
100% absolutely true.
Absolutely.
And don't forget to hit us up at Twitter, leave a comment down below, and we will see you next time on Not Your Status Quo.